Hello again. We begin by enjoying some scenes of my local wildlife, as I believe a closer connection to nature enriches all our lives. The Practical Animal channel is for you if you want to know what it takes to work with animals. Today's subject is falcons. My name is John Beaumont and I have degrees in wildlife management, conservation biology and veterinary medicine. I've also worked on some of the highest profile conservation projects in the world. Join me on an around the world survey of jobs with animals as I speak to animal industry professionals every week, asking them what it takes to work with animals and analysing the skills and characteristics needed for success in the animal industry. My questions go to the heart of what it takes to be successful working with animals. The Practical Animal channel's whole basis is that professional success means working with animals. It's all I ever wanted to do, and if that's true for you, then please consider subscribing to the channel so as not to miss out on the weekly interviews. You may also want to consider using selected questions for your own job interviews. Also, if you are a student of English as a foreign language, you can use my videos as listening practice for your learning. My next guest is Graham Forbes, Managing Director of Forbes Falconry. Please share the video with anyone you know who may benefit from the content. Back to today's topic, and why is hunting the best tool for wildlife conservation? Graham, I had a look at your website. Can you describe what you do, please, with birds of prey?
Well, the website is actually an online store. So I sell lots of falconry equipment, radio tracking equipment, hunting clothing, and generally gear that's associated with the flying and keeping of birds of prey. When I market it online, I use a lot of my personal hunting videos and pictures because also I'm a falconer myself and fly and hunt birds regularly.
Graham, for people who don't know, what is falconry, please?
Falconry is the hunting of live quarry with raptors, with birds of prey.
Which birds of prey do you have, Graham?
I have quite a few. Some are for breeding, some are for hunting, but I mostly keep falcons.
Graham, why does someone become a falconer?
Oh, that's a really good question. I guess a lot of it will come down to individual circumstances. For me, my family were very much into hunting, shooting, fishing. My sisters all rode horses. My dad's a keen um, fisherman and used to do a lot of shooting. My parents also breed Labradors, so we used to regularly go to game fairs. It was like an annual event on the calendar, and I think as a 10-year-old boy, I saw the birds of prey and became captivated by them, and the passion grew from there. For others, possibly already happening within the family, um, or possibly a business opportunity. I know some people started in pest control, and falconry being a part of pest control, their interest has grown from there. So I think there's a variety of ways you can get involved in the sport, but I think you essentially have to have a passion for raptors in the first place.
Graham, what jobs are there with birds of prey?
Um, Not too many. And the best ones are few and far between, which is probably not too dissimilar to most industries. But probably the most common would be pest control. where people use hawks and falcons to clear vermin such as seagulls, crows, rabbits. That's something in this country. It might vary from country to country. There's also, I guess, display falconers. I'm not sure you could technically call that falconry because it doesn't involve hunting, but you said you can keep and fly raptors at fairs to displaying the birds for education reasons, at zoos, etc. So there's certainly plenty of opportunities in that sense. And then there's also the breeding of birds of prey. Like most animals, there's often a commercial market, and there's profit can be made there. But there's a lot we could go into depth into that. The market's probably saturated at the moment, where everyone's tried to make a lot of money, and it's probably gone a little bit too far at the moment, if we're all honest.
Graham, can you describe a year in the life of a falconer, please? Do you hunt the birds all year round, for example?
It depends on your quarry. So if you're hunting a vermin species such as crows, rabbits, gulls, and you've got the appropriate licenses, you can hunt them all year round. If we're hunting what we class as game, pheasants, partridge, hare, duck, all these animals have a season. And the season usually runs from around August the 12th at the earliest, September through to around this time of year, end of January, February. So generally the hunting season for game is coming to the end. For some quarry, it is the end. For the falconers that hunt, say, vermin species, pigeon, crow, and gulls, their season can continue. But generally, I think anyone who's involved in any sort of hunting, really, the first rule of hunting is conservation. We hunters tend to get a bad reputation, and it's all seen as a blood sport. But the reality is, if you hunt your species to extinction, then you've got nothing left to hunt. And if you want to hunting as a sport, it's about certainly the falconry, it's the element of the chase. It's seeing the bird perform as close to its natural capabilities as possible. In order to do that, you have to have the right setup. The prey has to have an equal opportunity to be able to get away, as well as the falcon has a chance to catch the prey. So there's a lot of conservation goes into it. It's not just about the killing of other animals, so to speak.
Could you expand a little bit on that, Graham, for people who are a little bit on the fence thinking, I think birds of prey are fantastic, amazing, fascinating, but really killing anything goes beyond my ethics. How do falconers contribute to conservation projects?
Well, a falcon will only eat live prey. They're not scavengers. They're not going to eat something that's lying dead down the road or something that's died of natural causes. They will only chase and hunt live prey. In order to do that, your falcon has to be exceptionally fit, because its wild quarry is going to be exceptionally fit. So there's a lot of time and patience and hard work that goes into developing a falcon to do that. And I think most falconers would say it's not necessarily about the numbers in the bag or how much prey your falcon takes. It's about the seeing that bird perform as close to its wild antics as possible. That's the spectacle. That's what we're there to see. I would take a good flight over an easy kill every day of the week. In terms of conservation, I guess it depends what you're hunting. So I think a good example would be the grouse moors in Scotland get a lot of stick about driven grouse. And I can understand that and understand the reasons for that. But you look at the impacts on the mountain hare, how the eradication of vermin, the keeping of the land to make sure it's appropriate and there's enough food sources for those animals, means that the mountain hare is thriving. And what's really important with any sort of rodent is when it's thriving, it's also controlled, because the disease can spread really quickly, and a thriving species could very quickly be eradicated by mismanagement. So there's so much goes into it, and I'll be honest, so much more than where my knowledge goes to. But I'm not naive to think that if we don't look after the land we're hunting and working on, then there's not going to be the possibility to hunt anymore.
Graham, can you describe your own career from start to date, please?
Within falconry, yeah, absolutely. So it started at 10 years old. I watched what became my mentor. She was flying a peregrine falcon, and I was just absolutely captivated by it. To the point I was standing still, wouldn't move. My mum couldn't move me from the spot I was standing, watching this peregrine falcon. And then the obsession grew from there. Just as a young child, going in down to her name was Diana Derman Walters, going to Diana's place to learn, and support her at her. She had a breeding centre and we do a lot of display work. And I would go and help out, generally by cleaning the birds out, filling the baths, preparing food, that sort of thing, and at the same time learning my trade as a falconer. And then as a teenager, getting my own bird, and it just it's grown and kept growing from there. By trade, I'm actually a teacher. My business kind of came about a little bit by accident. I was buying a product that I knew was very good, and it was a product from another country, from abroad. And I inquired why they weren't so prevalent in the UK, and it's because they didn't have a representative. But it was something I'm looking for, so I decided just to be friendly, to be helpful, to build a website and sell their product, which worked and successful. And more people approached me to sell their product, and the company's grown and grown and grown to the point it's become quite well established, certainly in the UK and internationally as well. It's at the point now where it's actually a challenge to stop it growing, because it's starting to impact a little bit on my day-to-day job, and my time to actually to live my life. Having two careers is a challenge, but yeah, it's grown and grown out of the passion, and I certainly can't complain.
Can you describe your own connection with birds of prey, Graham?
Wow, I've been asked that so many times, and I'm not sure I've ever been able to give the proper answer. I just find them hugely unique and special, and the more I've learnt about them, the stronger that passion's gone. I remember doing a bird project at primary school, and drawing the birds, and I caught a blue tit in my garden. It was a little garden bird, and that was a bit of a special moment. I'll never forget. I just randomly managed to catch it, creeping up on it as a 5 or 6 year old. And so I think there was already an interest in birds there. And then when I came across the birds of prey, it just captivated a little boy, and that passion's never changed.
Graham, you've already alluded to it, but which books, people, or meetings have most influenced your thinking as a professional falconer?
Yeah, the person that's influenced me the most is a lady called Diana Derman Walters. She's now retired, but she was an exceptional falconer, and the reason I'm still a falconer now. She also, I wasn't from a very wealthy family. It was my parents worked very hard, but we couldn't really afford to send me on falconry courses. And Diana took me in under her wing for, I think the trade was when she came to do a local display near my house. My mum provided her lodgings, so it was a very exceptional trade on our side. Really, I got to learn falconry, and Diana would purely just got to stay at her house for a bit, and instead of having to camp at the game fair or wherever it was. So I'll always be indebted to Diana for that opportunity, because she saw the passion and obsession in me, and helped harness that. In terms of books, there's one book that's stayed with me for a long time. It's called Falconry and Hawking by Sir Philip Glazier. Philip Glazier was the last known falconer to be actually employed by royalty. The last, because obviously falconry's got a very huge tradition through royalty back in the history in the archives. His daughter, Jemima Parry Jones, is still a very prevalent and well-established international falconer. So his book is, people would describe it as the Bible of falconry, so to speak. And then Dr. Nick Fox, Understanding the Bird of Prey, is another fantastic book that people can use as a reference to always go back. And there's many others. There's many others. I could keep going on and on. There's an American gentleman, Bruce Hack. I think it's called The Hunting Falcon. Is another exceptional book. A Hawk for the Bush. There's so many. There's so many. And I think once you've got the passion and it's something you want to learn, there's so much reading and text you can go and find and learn a little bit from every one of them.
Graham, what is your view of the falconry furniture equipment making industry today and the bird of prey industry today?
I think it's quite fascinating in the fact that falconry, we've not got a real origin for falconry. I think we believe it's dated back to something like 300 BC or even further than that. So it's one of, if not the oldest sport in the world. But what's incredible is a lot of those traditional methods that were used back then are still used now. Obviously, materials and technology has improved a lot of things. I think what it's improved probably is more the comfort for the birds and possibly the ease of changing equipment. But essentially, not much has changed over centuries, which is really incredible. I think it shows that the early falconers really had a genuine care for the birds and probably practiced lots of different techniques till they found the right one. And then the techniques they found have lasted for centuries.
How do you see falconry changing over the next 10 years, Graham?
I think we have huge challenges ahead. It's harder than ever to get land permission to go and hunt, particularly in the UK. I think legislation around hunting, sometimes feel like the net's closing in, because I think the vast majority, in terms of we're talking about population, are against hunting and the thought of other things dying. I do think there needs to be more education around hunting and why we do it and the need for it. But I do think that unfortunately, I'm starting to feel like it potentially has a reduced future, a lifespan. I've got a bad feeling at some point, hopefully not in my lifetime, that the hunting of all aspects will possibly go.
Graham, what skills and personal qualities have been key to your own success as a professional falconer?
The biggest one for every falconer is patience. Patience, I would then say determination, resilience, and obviously a real passion for the birds and the sport. I can't remember whose book it is, but in the foreword of one of the books, it describes that no other sport or activity takes so much time, work, and dedication, and so much heartache for seconds of a moment that you'll remember and live for forever. But the hours and time dedication going beforehand is hard. It's tough, and it can be immensely heartbreaking. Every time your bird leaves the fist, the most important thing is hoping it returns and is back on that fist in a healthy way possible. But as we all know, anyone who's involved with animals, nature is brutal, especially when you're flying predators. So it can sometimes have the harshest and most horrible of endings, which can often be difficult to get back in the saddle or to get put on the gauntlet again. Because when you put so much time and dedication into something and then a tragedy happens, you don't want to feel that again. It's horrible. We all know that. But it's unfortunately it's very much a nature and a side of the sport. It's fine margins all the time.
I think this is possibly one of the most emotional interviews I've ever had. You're really getting down to it here. Graham, what skills will people need 10 years from now to do what you do?
What skills? God, that's a good one, because I wouldn't say the skills is knowledge, because there's once that bird's left the fist, I'm not doing a lot really. I might run and flush birds, or I think the skills are very much knowledge of the land, knowledge of your quarry, knowledge of your bird, knowledge of the weather conditions. So if we can describe those as skills, yeah, there's plenty. But for me, it's knowledge. So if I was to give advice to a beginner falconer, it would be to read as much as you can. I appreciate that's maybe not for everybody, or audiobooks, whatever they prefer. But I guess for some people, reading may not be a possibility. So to make sure I'm being inclusive, the most important thing for anybody to do would be to find another falconer, a reputable one that's doing the sport properly, and follow and learn from them. Copy, ask questions, and then go forward from there. I think the big mistake people often make is they see it, they enjoy it, think, yeah, I can do that. It looks simple. They get a bird, they don't get enough support, and then they start making mistakes, and that becomes a risk to them, to the bird, other people, and ultimately the sport. So find another falconer, learn from them, ask lots of questions, and read as much as you can. Like anything, we're learning all the time, and my birds teach me new stuff all the time. Another I'm still happy. I've been doing falconry now for 35 years, and I've never actually counted up. Yeah, wow, 35 years, and I'm still learning all the time from other falconers. Young falconers just started are still teaching me things. New birds. Your quarry evolves. Today I actually had a falcon catch a crow underneath a cattle trough. The crow went under the cattle trough for sanctuary, and the bird followed on foot. And she got it incredibly. But I've had similar before, but it also shows that she's learned, because we've been in this situation before where the crow's gone under the cattle trough and she stayed in the air and kept climbing, dropping down, trying to flush it out. And the crow waited till she was out of position, then made its escape. This time she landed on the ground and went and just followed in on foot, and then came out the other side with it. So it shows she's learning as well. So yeah, every day is a school day.
Any advice for somebody wanting to make birds of prey a career, Graham?
As a career, it's tough. If you don't want to be rich, don't do it. That's the harsh reality. If you want to take it up as a hobby, got to make sure you've got the time. Got the time and the patience. It takes up a lot of my time. You have to have an understanding family, because you can't go out and fly for 20 minutes. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you can go out and it's quick. Sometimes it can be hours. If the bird's gone missing, it's days. It's nights, looking, searching, trying to find. So it can really impact on your social life, your family life. It is a commitment, and these birds live a long time, especially if you look after them. They'll live a long time and need a lot of support and exercise.
Graham, would you happen to have any advice for in the scenario in which an experienced falconer is approached by a novice falconer, wanting him or her to be their mentor? And that person has never been asked to be a mentor before. Have you got any advice for somebody in that position who's been approached and they're thinking about becoming a mentor?
Again, patience. Luckily for me, it comes quite naturally to me because I'm a teacher, and I've benefited from a mentor before, and I guess my mindset is to constantly be learning. So for me, it's always been quite a natural thing for me to do. For others, I can see why they potentially wouldn't want to do it. Falconry at times can be quite a private sport. It can also be quite a social sport. It can also be quite private. So I think as long as you're willing to give up your time and have go by the mantra that there's no stupid questions, and enjoy someone else's company, then go for it. If you'd rather be on your own and you prefer that time, then don't do it. Don't put yourself through it or put them through it, because it'll become a burden. But yeah, no, I think when we look at falconry, I think if I'm honest, the people to look at is the Americans, because they've a very rigorous system across in America, and they also have I guess, a more understanding, I don't know, government community, because how they do it out there, it's wild take. You don't go and buy your first bird of prey. You're not allowed to. You capture it from the wild, and the idea is you capture a young bird in its first year that's already hunting, so it's fit, it's strong, inexperienced, but it's surviving. The idea is you trap it, you man it, you train it, you fly it for a few years, and then you release it, and then you can graduate to more advanced, more challenging species, until you get to the point where you graduate enough to breed your own, or then buy falcons, etc. But a beginner must trap and man their own wild bird and release, which is, I think, it's a fantastic system. I would welcome wild take back in this country, as long as it was policed correctly, because it means those 5-minute falconers that are making mistakes, that bird can be released and it'll be fine. Falconers that are doing well, they fly a falcon or a hawk that's does exceptionally well, takes lots of quarry, and then when you release it, you're releasing a fit, strong, healthy bird back into the wild. And you go again with something new. So it's such a fantastic system, and also with America, for you to do the trapping, you must have a mentor. So I think you do some sort of raptor test or qualification. When you pass that, you then have to find a mentor, and then the mentor takes you through it all. But you cannot go and trap that bird without having a registered mentor. So it's just such a much better system. Whereas in the UK, the sad reality is anyone tomorrow can go online, buy themselves a cheap hawk or falcon, and give it a go. And that's quite scary.
Graham, how easy is it to find a suitable vet for your birds?
Quite difficult. Quite difficult. I don't want to be causing trouble here, but there's been many a time with a vet where we've disagreed, because the reality is raptors are very unique, and your usual vet to deal with domesticated animals quite regularly don't have the knowledge, and so you need to find exotic vets with experience. But even then, the knowledge can be sketchy, and they're often having to call through to a more experienced raptor vet, which is frustrating, because it often ups your cost a little bit when you often are sat there knowing the answers, but you need someone with the qualification to be able to prescribe you the meds that you need, etc. So yeah, that can be a real challenge and quite tough. I think for me, most of the challenges have been when it's been out of hours. Because if something happens and I know I need vet assistance, and I know some of the vets in the country, I've got my own vet that's not too far away, then that's all okay. You're going to trust an individual, someone's got the knowledge. It's when something happens out of hours and that person's not available, you're often going to a vet that very well educated, much cleverer than I am, but when it comes to raptors, the knowledge isn't the same, and that can be quite frustrating. So it is a challenge. But again, that's why it's important to have a mentor and liaise with people, because people have contacts, people you can phone, and possibly quite often experienced falconers that give you the right guidance before necessarily taken to a vet. Raptors have a really bad habit of standing up looking healthy till the very last minute. And then that last minute can become really crucial. So being able to identify the signs early takes experience, So yeah, just that's where the mentor and having a just a group of people you can draw on is really important.
Graham, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, just that it's an exceptional sport. You can tell the passion's probably come through, I would hope. I was out flying today, I'll be out flying tomorrow, and I'll keep going till my season ends. And then I'll be breeding, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a successful breeding season as well. So if it's something you're interested in, you've got to go in 100%. It's a very rewarding, but it's hard, it's tough.
Well, Graham, it's been absolutely fantastic and inspirational. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you very much indeed for being on the Practical Animal channel, Graham Forbes.
No problem at all. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. It's been a pleasure. I could talk about falconry all day.
Thanks, Graham.
All right. Thank you very much. Cheers.